Good morning, members. All right, welcome back to part 2 of Clayton. I left you yesterday with the stone captured and the loops ready for, jump rings and chains if this minimal pendant was all that you wanted. The stone's pretty secure in here at this juncture. So if you didn't want to do anything more, you could eliminate these wires. Simply, I would take them back down to the back and curl them out right here, stitch them in a couple of bits so that the whole thing is real stable and real neat and clean. And then you can take your jump rings from your loops, out to chain. So if you want nothing, kill those side wires and just go for this, making sure that your stone is really in there though. And then if you want more design, obviously we have all this length and wire to do more with. And yesterday when we tied it down to the back, we tied it low here on the V so that, I can take a nice bend in these wires if I need to and drop them down my stone even more so. I'm attached here, but not way up here. If I were attached way up here, I wouldn't be able to bend. So as you're building these things, you want to keep in mind, especially with this frame, where you want to set these wires, whether you want to set them higher up top or more towards the center of the stone. And in this case, we're just going to bend them a little bit more. So just continue that curve, bring that loop kind of right into that crevice, and the wires are slanted kind of down the sides here. They don't have to be exactly perfect, but you can just take a look at them on your board and just make sure that you've got, nice, even, and consistent slope on both sides of them. We're going to add one more wire to this to give us 4 design wires, and so that you can see how to add a wire. And then we'll weave them out and we'll bring them down into design. Okay. So there's a little crevice between the stone and all this back weave that you've done. There's a little pocket there. And that should be just enough to slip a wire either, down here or in the center. In our case, we're going to slip a wire to the bottom. If you need more support on the stone, the wire can be flipped up onto the stone and then brought back to the back. If you don't need it and you don't want another one, don't do it. So I'll cut 12 inches of 18 gauge round soft copper wire. So here's 12 more inches of 18 gauge round soft copper wire, the same wire we've been working on the frame here. And I've got it cut to 12 inches, and I'm just going to slide it right in between the stone and those bottom wires. I'll center it. You could have marked the center. I'm just doing an eyeball on it. And I'm going to bring it right to the base here of my frame. Don't give so much pressure that you're taking your frame out of shape, but hold it there and make a sharp bend in it. Then get the other side, get the bend right up against those weaved wires here at the bottom. Crisscross them. Make sure the crisscross stays center. And just get them down so that they're crossing center at the bottom point of your stone here. And that's pretty good there. From here, you can take the wire and flip it back over the front and give yourself, another line of wire or design wire up here. But once it's real tight and real snug to the base right here, and I can't pull it down anymore, and I've got them crossed center, take the one from the bottom. I'm going to go across the front of my stone just to make that a real nice curve. And once you got that nice line, put your finger right here, hold it steady, and curve the wire up onto the face of the stone inside of the weaved wires. Right? It's a little jiggly because it's not tied in, so you're holding everything steady. And sometimes it's easier to get both of them turning, but I've got that real sharp turn, and I'm just going to push it onto the stone at a diagonal that way from that side. Okay? From this side I'll do the same. Got it all nice and secure right there. Just going to make a loop over, a bend over all that. Come onto the face of the stone. Real tight at that curve right there, and just go up at a diagonal or out at a diagonal. Try to get as low and close to this as you can. Should look about like that. If you need to take a plier, you can. Just be real careful about the squeeze against your stone. Just a squeeze right there against the back of it and right here. Tight, but just a delicate tight tap. Just like that. Almost like you're trying to push it forward a little bit. So that should be nice and on there. Very pretty. And now I can bring it up along my stone, either in design or just, along this one. So I'm flat against the stone, I'm using my thumb, and all I'm doing is tracing that first frame wire. Just want a nice curve on this wire. It's laying on top of the stone. Come right over the top. That looks beautiful. Of course you could coil that or add half round to it, whatever you want. Make sure that that lay is nice and flat and curved the way you want it, and then right here at the top, take it straight over and into a diagonal so that you get a nice tight fit. Just make it match that V. Take it straight over. Okay, so nice tight fit. It looks good. From there, hold it right here at the top. Once you get your fit, and put your finger right here at the bottom to hold that, because that's where it originates. And take a turn, just curve to the side, and come along your other 18 gauges right here. Just lay it down right next to your other 18 gauges, just like that. Okay, and we'll do the same with the opposite side. So now we have 4 design wires. And with this opposite side, we'll do the same. Stay real tight onto your stone. Use your finger and just gently curve this wire to meet the inside of the stone. If you get a little raise right there like that, and you don't want that so much, use your plier and carefully tap tap, real careful, real gentle, and just get it pressured down a little bit more. Okay. Continue to elegantly curve your wire, keep it flat against your stone. Just make it match this curve from the opposite, from the previous frame wire. Nice and pretty, substantial. Bring it across the top here, nice and tight, into a diagonal, straight across the stone, the back, so that the bit right here is nice and tight, just like that. And then hold it down, hold the bottom, and curve this wire right there under your thumb, whoop, and bring it alongside these others, just below. So when I look at the front now, I have this nice extra design wire, because this is a pretty big stone. I've got a tiny little crevice right here and right here where I can tie bead balls or whatever. Maybe put a faceted gem there if I want, or nothing. And then my wires are coming over and across, and added an additional design wire to each side. Okay, so hopefully those curves look the way you want them to. If they don't, just gently work them with your thumb into some elegance. Don't make drastic moves. If it goes really bad, take it off and do another wire. Save that one for another day or another project. Okay, so real pretty just like that. So now let's go ahead and turn to the back. We'll weave these wires together. We'll start some fresh weaving wire back here. Okay, so I've got 2 feet of fresh 28 gauge weaving wire. And of course I did the other side without the volume, but that's okay. Now I have it to show you. So here is the weave we're going to do. We're going to weave the add-on wire to the lower, 18 gauge. So these 2 lower wires are what we're going to weave. And I'm going to attach my weaving wire just with a few wraps around all of it, and then I'll come down and do the modified sumac. I think that's what this weave is called, modified sumac, for 1 inch. And 1 inch should leave me with about 4 or 5 inches left of my weaving wire at the end of the stretch. So I'll turn my pendant over just so I can get to these 2 wires a little easier. I've got my 2 feet of 28 gauge. I'm going to bind all the wires together first just by slipping under all of them. So I've got my leading 1 inch, hold on to it with my finger right there. This is all still open, so we can just, scooch underneath there. Whoop. Get something to hold on to. Okay, and then let's make 3 wraps around the whole stack. Come underneath your loop. If your weaves get in the way, just kind of jiggle stuff and get the wrap in there. So there's 1, go around the whole thing, get 2, go around the whole thing, get 3, so that's really on there. And then we'll cross over here. We'll take these 2 bottom wires and we're going to weave on them. So from here, stretch down and do a complete loop around both of those and get into position right there. So all nice and tight, and you've got your add-on added. And then make sure your distance, your spacing between these wires is good. And then we'll do the weave. So it'll be a complete 360 around. We're only dealing with these 2 wires. These 2 will stay for a different weave. So complete 360 around that one, the bottom one. And that leaves you in front of it. So you'll come up, do a complete 360 around this top one, which leaves you behind it. You'll come back to the front and go up and do a complete 360 around this one. Up, do a complete 360 around the upper one. Leaves you behind it. Okay, so we'll weave in this pattern in modified sumac. Please correct me in the comments if I'm got the name of the weave wrong. But we'll continue in this way for about 1 inch. You can just eyeball the 1 inch. It's not critical if you're 1 inch and 1 millimeter, but about 1 inch. Oop. Try to ignore the 2 other wires while you're working. All right, so keep weaving until you reach your approximate distance, and then we'll take our bends and see how much further we've got to weave. So I'm just going to flip to the front now and look at it. This particular weave on, 2 frame wires here is reversible, right? It's the same on either side. Not all weaves are like that for you new people who haven't done wire weaving before. Some of these weaves have a grain or a direction as you're weaving them. So if you flip your wires over and you continue that weave, you actually are changing the grain or changing the pattern. So keep that in mind. This one I casually flipped over because I can. And I did that so that I can kind of eyeball my distance on both sides here. Just keep weaving until we get to our approximate 1 inch. And the approximate 1 inch is from here to here, right? So from here to here, it's about 1 inch. And then I'll take a little eyeball measure, and I'm pretty close. I've got 3 or 4 more stitches here. Give a few little taps. Push the weave back gently. And I'll make a couple more just to get my distance. And then I'll start the bend on these wires and see where I'm at. Okay. That's pretty good. I think this other side is longer, so I'm actually going to go a little longer. And we're going to continue to weave more on them anyway once they're bent, but we'll see where we're at. Okay. Okay. So from here, I'm going to turn to the back. Let's get rid of the leading fragment so it doesn't confuse us. And I'm going to turn these wires down to the bottom. I'm going to curve them just, along the side here to match the curve of my stone. I've got my finger right here to control the whole thing. Get the slant going down so that it exits right about middle of the stone. Try to be the same on both sides if you can. So right here, it's about the center of my stone. I'm flat against the back and I'm just going to hold it right there, just this armpit, and curve this wire. Okay. Control the curve down, stay close to the stone. Just get a nice, elegant little peek out right there. Just a little bit. Just like that. Now it seems like a lot of work just to show a little bit, but that's how wire weave rolls sometimes. And when you move this one, of course, one of them is this one. So it might want to adjust the wire on the front of your stone. Just keep it under control. Do a little tapping back if you need to. All I did was tapped it right here because as I curved it, it widened it out a little bit. So I just tapped it back. And I've got this nice curve and it's passing down center. Okay? I'm going to leave my weave right where it is until I get the other one curved. So from the back, I'll hold it right here at this armpit, kind of do the same, just work it down into a nice curve, trying to make it match the other side. It's hard to see, but I got my finger down here to help hold that wire so that I can curve it. And all I'm trying to do is just make a cute little bump out right there so that I can see my weave. And on this side, I might actually bump it out a little bit more right here. I'm holding it closer up here. You see my middle finger? So that I get a little bit more turn on it right there. Just a little more outward curve. So right up against the stone, but just enough to see it. Okay, and that looks pretty good. We want our weaves probably ending, you know, right about here. So I'll weave a few more and get to about right here and get to about right here on the other one, just about to where these wires end. We want to be crossing in the middle. We want to make sure that both sides look nice and consistent. So once you get your bend on and you see where you're going, hopefully we've got enough wire to get there. We'll take a few more stitches. Whoop, I'm going backwards already. Certainly we can always add weaving wire if you need to add weaving wire. If you're watching this ahead of time, this was a solid 24 inches, and I'm getting down to the nitty-gritty here, so you know, maybe go 26 inches. Give yourself a couple more inches for comfort. Weaving on the curve is a little bit trickier, but it can still be done. It's only a few stitches. I'll stop right there. Ooh. When I pull the wire close, and I'm right up against the edge of my stone, and my weave is going to end right there where I can catch and tie to this wire, okay, to the add-on 18. And you should have, I still got about 3 inches here, so it'll be just enough for me to tie back. But before I do, go ahead and weave this side out, get to the same place. I'll just go from the back since I can see it a little easier. That might be all that I need on this one. Let's see where I'm at. So come to the front, pull them both down. The one on my left is good. The one on my right could take about 3 or 4 more repeats. So I'll do that. This is the one I'm working on. Almost there. And I'm really down to the nitty-gritty on this wire. So yeah, probably you could start with 26 inches. Give yourself a couple extra inches so you're not so short right here. Okay, and I'm right there. Just gonna make it. Okay, so right, you know, weaving is ending right about there. And if you don't quite have enough, you could add wire or you could stretch this a little bit. And you want to be able to comfortably tie on right there. I'm going to just stretch this side a little bit because I only got about 1.5 inches left here. It's not much to tie on with, and I don't want to add wire just for that. So all I'm going to do is just stretch down my weave a little bit. It's kind of you see it moving? It's a little bit of a way to cheat if you're within a stitch or two of where you want to be. So start with this back one. Just take my little bit of wire. Ooh, it's a very little bit. And I'll make a few wraps right here to tie it on. We'll do more than this. It's not going to be enough to keep it in place, but it's just to help us out. While we're working. So I've just got 2 loose little wraps right there to kind of keep it in place there for me. So you can see that right there. See the couple of little ties right there from this wire. Okay, right there. So now I'll do this side. Make sure it's curving the way you want. Make sure that they're crossing each other, bottom center. And then take your weaving wire from underneath here. And you can make a couple of stitches onto here just to help you hold it in place while we work. Just like that. And that's pretty good. So you can get an eyeball on it. The curves look nice. Make sure they're elegant in the way you actually want them to be. And then we're going to crisscross them right here just like we did on Claudia. So hold everything. Make sure they're crossing in the center. Make sure these two wires are living the way you want them to, because they reside, you know, part of it is here. Part of this 18 gauge up in here is from that wire. So making sure that they crisscross here in my bottom center. I'll take the bottom one. I'm not pushing, I'm not pulling. Just going to turn it up 90 degrees. You could be on your board down here doing this too. I'm up here in the air for the camera. And I'm just going to turn it over itself, just like we always do. A technique that we know how to use, just like that. And when it gets over and where I want it, pinch it down tight with my fingers. Or use a plier. Hold this leading wire so that you can get a nice squeeze on it. So just like that, right down there at bottom center. Okay. And now I'll do the opposite side. Just take those two wires with a nice sturdy plier, turn them up and onto themselves, just back bend them. Straight over and back onto themselves. Just like that. And when you get the bend that you want and you're ready, get your plier and gently squeeze them down. Okay, so we have a nice lock at the bottom. And now you have these wires right here for design, and they're structured at the bottom of your pendant. So we can do a bead ball, we can do anything there, we can do more weaving with these if we want to, or we can just bring them up for design or bring them to the back for design. In this case, let's go ahead and bring these short ones onto the stone. So from right here, I'm going to hold the tip, and I'm just going to bring this inside one straight up. Don't scratch your stone. Just curve it up, get it ready, you know, to work with if you want, just straight up. Do the other one. There's a little shorty right here from the add-on. Ooh, hold it right there. Just kind of curve it up. Bottom center of your stone here. Just looks like that. Okay. So while these two are up here, actually, let's go ahead and curl them out. So I'll hold this one right here. You see I've got kind of a bend on the one that's in front, so it makes like a little U shape here. You have to kind of make that one even because it is on top. Okay, and then we can take this one and do a nice little curve this way with it, I'm going to trim it down. I'm leaving about a total of 1 inch right there. I'll get my round nose plier. Take my round nose plier. Don't scratch your stone. Don't be on your stone. Get the tip of that wire. Hold the base so that you have leverage. And then turn the very tip into a nice spiral. Goes off kind of to the side. Curve it in a little bit more. Get the tip of it. Roll it over a little bit more. Just make a nice curve. Can leave it off here to the side. And now we can do this other one. I think I'm just going to take and curl it down into that space actually. So I'll trim off the tip of it. You can trim off as much as you want or as little as you want. Get the top of it. Whoop. Nice tight hold, and I've got my finger on the bottom intersection. Turning it the same way. Regrip. Just curl down into that space. Just like that. And that's cute. Position that. Just like that. We can take these 2 other bare wires and do a little bit more design down here if you want to. You know, why not? So let's take the one that's coming from the right and let's just follow that nice curve you got going at the bottom there. Bring it to this side. I'm going to go ahead and trim it right about here. This is a total of maybe 1 1/4 inch, and I'm going to bring the back curl here. So I'll cut it, give myself enough length there. So just at the edge of the weave here. So nice curve and then cut. And now we'll take our round nose plier, grip right on the edge, put your thumb down here to give yourself leverage and hold it. Then turn. Nice and tight, re-grip, keep turning. Get a nice tight curl going on. You can bring it down into that space. If you don't like it, you can cut it away. And I might cut some of it away and shrink it up. So I just tightened up my curl right there, munched up the tip, but we know that that's always the sacrificial tip. So we can hold tight there and then snip that munchie away at the end of our day. This side too. Just snip that little munchie away. And any other little munchie you might have, if you have them. Okay? If you don't like that design, certainly you can cut it off, but we can tie bead balls to it. We can do some other stuff with it later on. And then let's take this one, do a nice bend, curve around everything, then maybe we'll bring design up here. So I'll just do this up here. drop a nice big curl up here. So I've just curved it the way I want, pre-turned everything. Take a snip up here, leave a curve that I feel is what I need to make the curl that I want. Holding everything. I'm using my round nose, which probably could stand some service or a different pair. They're tweaking. And I'm going to make a nice curve. See if I love that. You know, certainly we're going to have to stitch and weave some of this together. But I think I like that. I think I'm pretty happy with that so far. So, you know, you can do whatever you'd like. If you want to hammer these, now would be the time to pull them forward and do the hammering. And I'll demonstrate that, even though we're not going to hammer the majority of them. You don't have to. Okay, so if I wanted to hammer this, the hinge is here at the tip where I bent it. Now that I've got it all curved the way I want, I'm just going to lift it out 90 degrees from my work. I'll get my bench block out. And you want to lay on top of the bench block so that you're hammering the side that goes against the stone. The nice side that's going to show to the public is on the block. Don't let your stone on the block. The vibration sometimes will get your stone cracked. And then just hammer out what you'd like. All right, so we just hammered that out. I pulled it out forward, hammered here and here just to flare it out. While it's out here, you might want to sand or file it, clean it up. If you have any munchie on this little tip right here, kind of pull it out 3D so you can get at it. And then you can just do a little snip and make it nice. Take a file to it, or take your emery board, or take, you know, a little sandpaper to it, clean it all up if it needs to be. Just that little edge right there. And I'm just using my emery board because I've shown you guys my jewelry files. You can see that just to clean up that little cut edge, that works pretty good. And then I can get my sandpaper, sand all that down nicely. And again, I'm not going to sand today just for the sake of time. And then I can put it right back where it belongs. Before I move on, since I'm hammering, is there anything else I want to hammer? You can pull down most of these still. So I might, just for funsies, go ahead and stress myself out and pull these forward. You just have to control the bend right here. Don't mess it up too much. Get the piece that you want to hammer out. I'm just going to hammer that tip right there. Sand it all on this side. Lay it back down. And we'll have to fiddle these wires to get them to lay back down. But that adds a little texture, just a little flair to the wires, and I might do this little guy too, why not? So I'll get really daring and just pull this one forward. I'm holding all the rest of them back, so it's just kind of working like an open book hinge right there. You don't want to alter your wires too much. You just want to back bend the piece you want to hammer. Just a little bit like that. And then I'll bend it back up into place. And I'll have to, you know, clean up my bends so that they lay right, and we'll have to tie them even still. But I got one more. I don't need to do it, so I'm not going to. I like what I've done there. So I'll just push that off to the side. I'm going to get my bent nose pliers and just clean this little bit right here up. Tips up. Use that nice curve, straddle piece you want to clean up, and just do very light pinching. I'm holding everything, right? So it helped it lay down a little bit. But the other thing I need to do is raise this part of it. Not so much physically raise it, but give it upper pressure while I'm pushing this down so that it helps the piece to lay down. So I got my thumb on it right there. I'm going to get it right here at the hinge and just give a little upward pressure, and that helps it to settle. Still going to have to tie that one because it's long. And I'll do the same to the one underneath it. I'll just kind of get my plier in there and just give a little bit of a raise to these curved wires while I'm pushing the head of that spiral down, and you see it laid that one down pretty nicely. It's fairly short, and this one will go down pretty nicely too because it's short. The long one, you know, it's only going to go down so much. So you hold the tip down against the stone and raise the back of it, you know, the end of the wire. So in my case, right here, I'm just going to correct that little bit of wire and give it a little bit of an upturn. And you see how it laid the spiral down. So basically your spiral head is sprung up, and what you want to do is create a back bend, you know, behind the decorative end so that it helps it to lay down. So hopefully that made sense, and then we'll still tie this long one, okay? And we'll still tie some bead balls and some other goodness in there. I'll just shift them around with my fingers so that they're living where I want them to. Just make gentle motions, you know, be careful not to scratch on your stone. And again, we would have sanded and snipped and cleaned up everything while it was pulled out like I did this one. I just, for time, didn't. Okay, so I love how that's looking. And now let's get rid of these two leading wires that we tied on here. We don't need them. So let's just snip them out really deep in this crevice, way down here. They were just temporary holds. And we can just leave them right there. While I'm back here, I'm going to give this, hold all your design. If you need to give a slight pinch, pinch those wires back together there. Okay? All right, and so now we have two additional 18 gauges that we can weave and bring down for more design. There's some decent length on them, so we can probably flip them right back up and do some more curly works if we want to. I'm not going to tie all this together until I do that. So the weave can change. You can leave them bare. You can coil them one at a time, you know, or you can weave the same weave, whichever you want. I'm going to do a different weave, just a little different weave, that 5 and 2. So I'll cut another 2 feet, 28 gauge weaving wire. I like to work 2 feet at a time. It's a good length for this particular pendant. And I'll come back here. I'll just start on this right hand side, flip the pendant upside down so that all your design is at the top and you're looking at the back. And now right here with these two, make sure they're nice and straight again. If you need to, you know, do any jiggling to them or anything to clean them up, you can do that. Insert your weaving wire between them. Hold on to a leading inch there. Let me fix my camera for you. We'll do 5 single coils on the bottom wire. And then we'll go over both wires. And we can do that twice. Then we'll make 5 single coils. Push everything back, go up, do 2 coils around 2 frame wires, and then 5 more singles. And we'll go for about 1 inch, and then we'll catch the other side up. So keep weaving in this pattern for 1 inch. I think it should be about 10 total repeats, we'll see. But you can count the repeats on this side and then do them on this side, you know, without having to do the measure. So there's 3, 4, 5. That's 2 repeats, and now I'll go for another 8. I think that's good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14 of them. We'll see if we need any more. And we might have to add a little bit of wire, but we'll see. That should make that bend. So let's go ahead and cut another 2 feet and do 14 repeats on this side of this very same weave. So I have a fresh 2 feet. I'll come to the opposite side. I'll get 1 inch anchored up here, and you notice that my peaks are going down, so I got to make sure to do the same on this side. So my 5 will be here at the bottom. 2, 3, 4, 5. Just wanted you to see it. So go 2, and then do another 5, and etc. for 14 repeats. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and take these leading wires off. Take a look at everything. Make sure your weave is nice. You can take a pair of flat nose and just tap lightly along the wires. Make sure you've got all the bubbles out and that they are laying nice and side by side and pushed back. So the reason that I do peaks down here is because we're going to curve around this way. You have open spaces in between these weaved peaks for the wire to curve. If you try to take sharp curves against a solidly coiled side of the weave, it doesn't go as tight or as smooth sometimes as you would expect. So just FYI on that. So here I go. I'm just going to trace and follow what I did the first time with these weaves. So I'll put my finger here and I'll just work this nice beautiful weave down side by side. Get a little bubble out right there, a little elegance right there. And I'm going to have to weave a little bit more to get myself down into the bottom. Maybe 2 or 3 more repeats, maybe 2. Just 2 more repeats. So 16 total repeats on each side should do it, but you can always pause, short, and then make your bend, and then see what you've got left. So here I'll bend this one in the back. Just going to try to make a similar line as on the opposite side. Turn to the front and see what I'm doing. I've got a little spot over here. I want to put a little more curve on. The wires are weaved, so sometimes you got to get a plier to help you make a curve where your hand or your finger might not be able to do it. All right, so pull them down. Got just a little bump out and just a little bump out. However much you want. Not too much though, because we need a little wire down here. And we'll stash just to the back. So just behind that first set. So let's turn this over. So we're crisscrossing just behind that first set, just like that. But before we do, let's go ahead and put 2 more repeats on each side. We have a couple of inches of wire here. It should be enough. If you don't have enough, then don't do them. You can leave that bare as well, or you could add wire, a little weaving wire, or if you're watching this ahead, give 26 inches instead of 24 if you feel like you need to, because this is going to be almost exact. God, it'll be real close. So there's 2. I'm really cutting myself some short on weaving wire today, you guys. Getting it really down to the nitty-gritties. I'll have to use my plier to help me get these little last 5. Sometimes we do this. And if we're working gold and silver, you might do this. Really take it down to exact wire. Copper, you could give yourself a couple of comfort inches here, but I didn't. But maybe you're watching ahead and you will. There's 4, and then my last one is 5. Okay, just push those back, and that's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and break this wire off back here. That little fragment, cut it away. Just tuck that little end. Let's go to this other side. Let's give 2 more repeats. Okay, and there goes my second repeat on that side, and I've got a little bare wire down here, and that's quite fine. Okay, I'm going to break that off, and I'm just going to refocus on my curves here and where they come along my stone. So I'm going to narrow that up a little bit just by pulling it in a little tighter. And I'm going to get these 2 wires just behind the crisscross over here. So I've got you know, just the other layer kind of peering out. And you can go further out if you want to. Kind of overbend those wires a little bit so that when they push back, they'll stay. Just make sure you got your lines nice the way you want it, and I think that's good there. It's looking really beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to crisscross. It's going to be a little weird because it's going to be behind here, but you see that there's a flex room right here, so you should be able to do it just fine. And like I said, if it's difficult, you can go, you know, a little bit below here. Depends on, well, let's go a little bit below because then we can see more of our weave. Actually, let's do that. So let's just bring the wire right to here, show more of our beautiful hard work. So just like that, get them crisscrossed right there. And you can either, ooh, my hands are starting to hurt a little bit. You can either hold them, or you can use, you know, the table down here. I'm up here in the air. So I'm going to get to the approximate middle, and we're going to overlap them just like we did the previous set. Make sure your curve is nice. Get a plier right there at the intersection. Make a 90-degree bend up. And again, you know, get set up down here, get your wires laid out, and then, you know, bend it up. It'd be easier. And I'm just going to help these wires straight over themselves. Push it down with my finger so that they cross in the approximate middle there, and that's very pretty. When you get it the way you want it, take a wider plier, squeeze them down so that they don't go anywhere. Okay, you don't have to kill it, just close it. So you got these two design wires off to this side then that we can use now. And let's go ahead and do the same with this pair. Get a plier right on it, turn them up 90 degrees, help them straight over onto themselves. Right there. So you're just kind of right below that first pair. I think that's actually good. Go right below it or wherever yours lands naturally. And then we can see our pretty weave. All right, and then when you get the wires where you want them, take a wider plier, come down here, squeeze them closed. I'll just do a little sanding. Oh, I nicked my wire. Just watch where you're gripping right there. If you're watching ahead, now I got some sanding I got to do, or I got some coiling or something I got to do right there to cover that up. Oh well, that's kind of how it rolls. All right, so put your finger right here. You can do anything with these wires. Let's get just a nice little elegant slope on them. Don't let them come out of place. It's like that, a little down bend. Hold the tip here. Get a little down turn on it. And then we can just continue with some design here in the front since we've got a nice big statement piece. If you want to bring all the wires to the front, none of the wires to the front, or if you want to slip some of them to the back, you can do that. You know, these two pieces, you know, are still independent of each other. So at some point, no matter what you do, you have to remember that we either need to stitch them together back here, or you need to make one of these, you know, wires come forward enough that it won't shift out of place. Okay, so probably the easiest solution is that we're, in the end of the day, we're going to put a few wraps back here. All right, you guys, so first of all, let's take this upper inside wire. We're just going to follow this nice line right, you know, up and around here. I think. Let's see what we do. Yeah, I think I'll bring it to the front. So I'll hold it all right here. Slope this up and around. That's pretty. I like that. Let's do that. Just make a nice big wide design there. And then up here, let's see what we do. Put your finger right there and bend it kind of back. Make like a little S in the whole thing. No, I'm not sure I'm crazy about that. Yeah, for me, this is too much curl going on in the front. So I think what I'm going to do with this one is just swoop them off and hammer them out. And take the curl off of the top of it. Bring it a little closer over here. Be careful of your stone. I'll end up hammering that out to just a nice flat end. And then let's take this one and let's wrap it to the back. Hold it right here and just make a nice, elegant curve to the back. End it with a little bare wire right there. Could have done the same with this one, and I still have enough distance to where I could probably get it to go back there if I want it off the stone. But just bring it straight across. Get that little curve the way you want it. And then we can end this one easily back here with a nice spiral in that open area. And I'm just going to leave a little distance on it so that I can tie it and make it stay down from back here if I decide I don't want anything on it in front. And I think I like it bare, but we're going to have to weave some of this other stuff up. So, but before you tie anything, just do that. So in case we want to hammer or anything. All right, so far so good. So let me get this other one. Maybe we'll just go to the back. Go right away with this one to the back. Give a nice elegant curve to it. That's very pretty. I could follow it up with a second one. Make it a little sharper bend like the other short one on the other side. Do something like that. I actually like the bare wire there better than this. So I'm gonna try to get it back there. Short to go back there. So I'm going to come back to the front and curl them off right there. I actually kind of like that now. That's great. Okay, worked out good. If you're watching ahead of time, sometimes these pieces do their own stuff when they don't like what you're doing. Okay, so I love that. It doesn't have to be symmetrical. I'm going to fix this guy. I think I'm going to have to take it down into a nice big spiral right here. That looks good. Yeah, that worked out. So just a nice, another big spiral right there. I'm going to hammer that out and clean it up. Pull my bench block out. Pull this one out. You can either go out 90 this way, or you can come to the side, whichever you feel is easier for you to be able to get at that piece. So I'm going to come to the side, flip it over, so that I'm hammering the back of it. Just like that. Go ahead and just snip off my munchie right there. Oh, that turned out better than I expected. And then I'll go ahead and put this little guy back into place. With my hands, I'm going to use my round nose and just give a little pinch on where I overturned it. Lay it right back down. So that's very pretty. Woo! I'm loving it. And again, you know, sand all that. We've shown in many videos in our past and recently how to sand. In most videos I show you. I just snipped off some munchie right there. I love all of that. Now let's come back here and start tying some things down, and then, you know, we can start doing some tie downs and decorations up here. We're almost done, you guys. I hope you're loving this so far. Clayton's turning out to be quite handsome. All right, so let's come back here and let's finish off these wires. You know, there's obvious places where you can tie them down. So let me just cut these short. Once your curves are nice and where you want them. See, there's a little spot. You can turn it down right into this open area right there. And then I'll have a nice little closure for it. Get my round nose on it. Hold that nice curve so you got leverage. Turn the wire so that it curls right into that space. You got a nice spot to tie it to right there. Okay, you can tie this one here. We'll pinch all these down again once we're certain that everything is where we want it. Okay, and that curve looks nice. So now I'll come over here and I'll get this curve done. Same thing. Probably gonna just trim it right there. Hold it where you want it. Give yourself a nice, beautiful curl that you can tie, you know, to something. Like you can stitch them right there. You can stitch that one to right there or right here. You get the idea. Okay, so we'll do that here in a second. Okay, ooh, all that's looking really beautiful and nothing offensive is showing out front. So once we like everything, let's get our wide pliers out and let's make sure that everything is settled, and then we'll start tying things together. Okay, so I'm going to get my 2mm, or you can get 4mm, and make sure that you've got these held down. Your nice spirals are all held down. Everything is laying down nicely. There aren't any weird bends. And then go with the grain of your wire. Don't do like me and give yourself nicks you got to sand out later. And tap the whole stack nice and tight. You're not killing it, just tapping it nice and tight. Nice pressure squeeze. Back here too, give a squeeze. If you can get to these little guys, try to. If you cannot, don't stress it. They still push back. Just go gently and try to get things tight. There we go. Yeah, I got a little sanding to do. Maybe I'll do some coiling right there or something. Okay, okay. Woo! I like everything the way it is. And now let's start tying things together and adding some bead balls and some other fun stuff, and we'll tie the rest of this back. You'll put jump rings right here, and you can go to some chain. Woo! Clayton is looking great. And I like the little offset design. I like things not so symmetrical all the time. So that's very beautiful. Okay, so let's do this next part. Well, I'm going to go off screen and sand everything. You can do the same, and then we'll come back and tie it all together.